It's time for the Newsmaker Show on News Talk AM 1480 WLEA.
Guest and State Senator Tom O'Mara. I wanted to thank the senator for joining us.
Thanks for having me on, Brian. It's always a pleasure. Good morning.
Well, Senator, first off, your thoughts on St. James getting that huge grant of just about $55 million.
This is absolutely fantastic. I mean, this is best case scenario we could have possibly hoped for, and it's just such a great leap forward for healthcare in the Cornell community and for St. James Hospital, the affiliation going forward with University of Rochester and Strong Medicine. They're just a great organization, and it's providing great services around the state.
With the Alstom news,
real positive things going on for the community. You know, it's been a long time. We've been down quite a bit in the Cornell area, and to see some good things coming through is great. And I've been very happy to be working with both Alstom and with the St. James Mercy board and Jen Sullivan there. Just we got a lot of great people in this community. Everybody's working together towards the same goals, and we're trying to start to see some of the fruits of that labor.
Senator O'Mara, the topics of heroin and meth, and not to go from a nice topic to not such a nice topic, but heroin and meth have both been a huge problem in the news all over. And you had a hearing on the problems of heroin use recently, and that was held in the Yates County town of Penn Yan. What did you come away from that meeting? Was there anything you learned or anything that stood out in your mind most about that?
Well, what stands out the most is, and it's what we've known, but we've been hearing it with this task force all across the state, is the real gap in access to treatment for those that are addicted to heroin. You know, it's a very widespread issue that we're dealing with. It crosses all socioeconomic groups in our society, and the lack of access to inpatient treatment and to detoxification treatment before you even get to inpatient is very lacking across the state. The number of beds are limited, and that's the primary focus that we have right now is in trying to ramp up the capabilities of the healthcare system to deal with the treatment of the addicts.
You know, I watched that on YouTube, and more than one of the heroin addicts' family members complained that there were problems getting insurance payments for some of the treatments for a heroin recovery.
There are a lot of problems with insurance company and with the expense and really the length of treatment required. At a minimum, it's a 30-day inpatient really to have any success, and we're showing even longer periods of time than that that are typically required for successful treatment of addiction, and a lot of follow-up treatment from the inpatient treatment as well, because the drug is so addictive that it's very hard to get off of it.
And methamphetamines, you got something passed in the state Senate that would make tougher violations on those convicted of selling or possessing methamphetamines. Can you tell us about that bill?
Yes, it's a bill that has several, half a dozen or so changes to the penal law that would increase the penalties on various possession and sale charges of methamphetamine to make it the same level of punishment as heroin or cocaine would be. I believe, and my colleagues in the Senate believe, that methamphetamines is every bit as dangerous to individuals in our society as heroin and cocaine, and this would just treat them the same. This is legislation I've carried for about 5 years now, and I think we've passed it 4 years in a row now in the Senate with little or no opposition in the Senate, and there's the bill is in the hands of the Assembly, and it has been for those the past 4 years, and the Assembly has refused to move it. So it's the leadership in the Assembly that is the roadblock here, as often is when we're looking to increase criminal penalties in New York. It's the Assembly Democrat leadership that is very much opposed to increasing penalties of that type.
State Senator Tom O'Mara is our guest this Monday morning. Senator, I see that there's legislation in the Senate. It's a bill called 5598. That's legislation to make it a crime to incite violence against a police officer. I'm guessing this is because of online threats on various social media websites, or maybe even private websites, threats that have been made against police officers and law enforcement online. Is that why this bill is being pushed?
Well, I think it probably is, and with a lot of the protesting we've had over the last year or so, with the highly publicized incidents involving police movements that are out there that have at times incited actions against police, and we have seen that in several instances throughout the country. And we just want to make sure, I think, that the sponsor's motivation is to be able to have something actionable on an individual that might try to incite some violence against law enforcement. We certainly don't want to encourage individuals to have the ability to kind of gin up the crowd, so to speak, to have these anti-actions against law and order.
Talking with State Senator Tom O'Mara on Monday's Newsmaker show. Senator O'Mara, the little debate's been going on in Albany. The Senate Republicans want to change the primary schedule for primaries so that it's all combined for one primary. Now, from what I understand, the Senate Republicans believe that the bulk of the vacationing for New York State residents happens in June, so have the primaries in August. Assembly Democrats say that the vacations are held in August and have the primaries in June. Here's what Senator Young said about that.
My colleagues on the other side of the aisle want to have campaigns and elections during a time of the year when we are elected to do the people's business. We are elected to pass the state budget. We are elected to pass bills that are going to do things that are important for the people of this state, whether it's to fund our schools and education so that our children have a brighter future, whether it's to grow jobs in the state, whether it's to give our hardworking, overburdened taxpayers more relief. That's what we should focus on January through June, not campaigns and elections.
Senator O'Mara, your reaction to that statement from Senator Young?
Well, I agree with her, with Kathy, wholeheartedly on that. Up until last year, I had been chairman of the Elections Committee in the Senate, and I had sponsored this legislation to have our primary in August rather than June. You know, the June date was ordered by a federal court telling us that we needed more time to comply with the Federal Military and Overseas Voter Act, which we certainly want to do and encourage full participation by our military personnel that are overseas or deployed elsewhere in the country to make sure that they're able to get their absentee ballots back on time. You know, frankly, I would rather not have a primary in either June or August because they are both vacation months. I know many of my constituents rush away to vacation as soon as the kids are out of school in the middle of June, or the third week in June, and they take a vacation right away. And then many people vacation in August as well. My support for August is, you know, I wish we could do it after Labor Day and have it closer to our traditional primary day of the second week in September. But the federal court had ruled that that was not enough time for compliance, which I really don't understand in the days of the technology that we have we ought to be able to at least get out the ballots electronically to the voters overseas and our military personnel, and have them back in the regular mail in time. With the technology, there's no reason we can't do that, and then we would be able to avoid having a primary and anything. But while this federal court ruling is out there, the court set it at June 28th. As I said, we can set it at any time we agree upon in New York State, as long as it provides the appropriate time between the primary and the general election. Keeping it in August keeps it more with the traditional time schedule and time frame that we have in New York State for our elections, and it also lessens the political campaign cycle. These are 2-year terms we're talking about for everyone in the state legislature and for Congress. They're 2-year terms, so we run for office every other year. The more you move those primaries earlier, the longer that election cycle gets carried out, and the more it cuts into the time that we're doing business. In legislative session in Albany.
Watching the debates on YouTube, Senator, I saw the upstate lawmakers challenging the downstate lawmakers, with the upstate lawmakers saying that the evidence is that the vacations are mostly taken in June. What's the problem here? It appeared to me that the downstate legislator did not have a very good answer for that the studies show that more people take vacations in June, and the best time for the primary would be in August.
Well, listen, 14 other states have gone with an August primary date in light of the Federal Move Act that required more time between primaries and the general election. I think the more important thing here is that we should not be in session in Albany doing the people's work and running primaries at the same time. We've seen it a couple times over the past congressional cycles when that primary has taken place earlier than ours, that we've had members of the legislature who have chosen to run for Congress, and they've been absent from voting an extensive amount during that period, because it is during the peak period of our legislative activity in Albany.
Talking with State Senator Tom O'Mara. When we get back, we'll talk education issues. Please stay with us. On the Newsmaker show today with State Senator Tom O'Mara, I'm Brian O'Neill. Senator, the gap elimination adjustment, the Senate Republicans worked hard to cut back on that. Do you see a time ever coming when it's completely gone?
Yes. I'm hopeful, and the Senate Republican Conference is hopeful we're able to eliminate that completely in this year's budget. The governor has come out with his executive budget this year and said that he is fully eliminating the GEA. However, he's doing it over a 2-year phase-out period. We think it's very important in the Senate that we eliminate that completely this year, get our schools fully back to where they were before the major cuts in 2010. And I would stress that this was during the 2-year period when the Republican Party had lost the majority of the Senate. It was the only 2 years in modern history that Democrats from downstate controlled the New York State Senate, and they instituted this gap elimination adjustment that hit our school districts extremely hard. It's something that we've been struggling very hard to eliminate completely since the Senate Republicans regained the majority after that 2-year period. And we have been successful in chipping away at that every year since then. And I really hope, and our leader, John Flanagan, has been very strong on the fact that we are going to eliminate the GEA this year's budget, and it'll be done.
The New York State Education Department has a new education commissioner in Mary Ellen Elia. Your thoughts on Mary Ellen Elia so far? She's only been there a little bit.
She's only been there a little bit. There has been certainly some positive movements away from the Common Core and away from the over-testing of our students and the evaluations of teachers based on uh, um, these scores on a whole new standard of testing that hasn't been established, hasn't been properly implemented, and a testing regimen that, frankly, has not been proven. So those movements away from those things are positive results in our education system, and we really need to get back to more local control of our school districts in what's being taught and what the standards are.
Do you think that the Senate Republicans see Mary Ellen Elliott as an improvement over John King, or about the same?
I think she's an improvement. I think, frankly, anybody would have been a big improvement over John King and the disastrous path he led us down with a completely incompetent rollout of Common Core.
And on Common Core, any legislative plans for that that are in the works at the moment?
Nothing. That's pretty much on hold right now, the Common Core, and we're going to see where things settle down. I think, it's going to be revisited. It's going to be looked at, some changes made to it, and we'll see where the Department of Education comes down on that. And we've got a lot of changes coming at the Board of Regents. There'll be several new members and a new chancellor of the Regents coming up here. Probably this month is when that action will be taking place in the state legislature.
Yes, I see online that the State Assembly has been interviewing some candidates for that.
At this point, other than what I've read in the media on it, and it seems that there are a lot of candidates interested and that are being interviewed for it, and we'll be getting backgrounds on those individuals, and we'll be participating in that process with the Assembly. But since it is done on a joint operation of both houses of the legislature acting together, the Democrats in the Assembly, with their large majority they have there, clearly outweigh the total of votes that we have in our Republican conference in the Senate, which is why the Speaker of the Assembly has such great control in the choosing of those regions. There are some legislative efforts out there to change the way the regions are selected and make it a process that isn't clearly controlled by the Democrats in the Assembly because of the large majority they have in that House. So, but those types of changes would probably be very unlikely to get through the Assembly because they'd be unwilling to give up that control that they wield over that selection process.
Yeah, I've always wondered why it was, and I remember Senator Winter used to talk about the big majority that the Assembly had, and how that affected the state Senate's powers. Wondering, Assemblyman or Senator O'Mara, Senator O'Mara, your thoughts on the possibility of the state Senate getting some ability to make the selection of the Board of Regents.
Well, I certainly would be very much in favor of that, but it would take an agreement to be reached with getting legislation through the Assembly if they hold all the cards right now. I don't think the possibilities of that are realistic.
Talking with State Senator Tom O'Mara. So far today we've talked about the fight against heroin and methamphetamines. We've talked about Senator Mike Nozzolio's bill to make it a crime to incite violence against a police officer. The primary date and when that will it be in June, will it be in August? We started out our show today talking about St. James Hospital getting a grant for almost $55 million, $54.9 million. Senator O'Mara, was there anything I did not bring up that you'd like to discuss?
One of the main efforts that myself and many members of the legislature, including Assemblyman Noje and Palmisano, is our efforts on transportation funding, which is a major part of the budget, particularly with funding for our local roads and bridges. Coming up this week in Albany is the lobby day when highway superintendents from towns and counties and villages from across the state come to Albany. We have Silver Palmisano, Jay and I organize a big rally of all those. We'll have probably over 600 highway superintendents there. It's a great show of strength that really helps us do our jobs in the fight for getting parity and spending for our local roads and bridges upstate in parity with the amount of transportation money that's spent in the MTA region around New York City.
State Senator Tom O'Meara, thank you very much for joining us today. Always great having you on.
Well, Brian, thanks for having me on. It is always a pleasure to speak with you and your audience, and have a great day.
ABC is next on AM 1480, WLEA, Hornell, New York.